Hello, Synodontist Man here. Welcome to Please Import These, a new series where I go over obscure fishes that I've taken a liking to and wish to see more of in aquaria. Imagine beyond the clear walls, but with the heavier focus on aquarium care and my personal experiences with the fish in question. Today's subject is the Bonylip Barb Osteochilus-vittatus, yet another fish that's widespread across Southeast Asia, yet rarely collected for the aquarium trade. Also known as the silver shark minnow, this fish is so obscure in Western aquarium circles that I had better luck finding information when I used the Indonesian common name ikan nilam as a search term than the Latin name. To be fair, ikan nilam is pretty fun to say. Ikan nilam. The main reason that I considered purchasing one of these fish was seeing their description in the book Aquarium Fishes of the World by Axelrod as a young child, and recognizing the name 19 years later when perusing the Wetspots website for fish to potentially purchase. As you can tell by this video's length, the $15 I spent on this fish was well worth it. There is a lot more to this fish than what initially meets the eye. Osteochilus is a medium-sized genus of Cyprinidae numbering 35 strong. Its name has an obvious etymology if you've seen enough scientific names over the years. Osteon means bone in Latin, and chilos means lips. Vittatus means banded. Banded bony lips. Note that there is no E in Osteochilus. Most of these fishes are medium-sized, maxing it out at around 8 to 12 inches or 20 to 30 centimeters standard length. Our friend Osteochilus-vittatus is no different, reaching a maximum size of around a foot long. If you search for bonylip barbs on the internet, you may encounter the name Osteochilus hasselti. Osteochilus hasselti is actually a synonym of Osteochilus-vittatus, so if you want to find extra information about the bonylip barb, like the Seriously Fish care sheet, you can use that name. Please don't use Hasselti to refer to the fish otherwise, or I'll be sad. Both names were originally erected around the same time in 1843 by the French researcher Achille Valenciennes as the now unused genus Rhohida. The name Osteochilus only came around in 1868 with a very generalized description that could apply to many labiodines of the region. This poor quality description, as well as Osteochilus-vittatus' widespread distribution and slight variation in appearance depending on its location of capture, led to the fish being known under many different names. Maurice Caudelat noticed that Osteochilus-vittatus and Osteochilus hasselti refer to the same fish upon further inspection of Javanese Osteochilus specimens, and officially synonymized Hasselti with Vittatus in 2009. Vittatus and Hasselti were even understood to refer to the same fish as long ago as 1958, but the paper saying so must have fallen under obscurity. The author chose the species name Vittata, by the way. Brown and silver cyprinids in far-flung lands are a mess to keep track of, so I don't blame scientists for being somewhat confused over this fish's identity. Phylogenetically, Osteochilus is a member of the highly diverse cyprinid subfamily Labioninae. Labionines have a vast array of distinguishing characters, to the point that the group is preferably diagnosed genetically rather than based on physical features. Most labionines tend to live near the bottom of whatever water body they inhabit and possess a vast array of mouth adaptations. Despite their varied mouth morphologies, labionines as a group lack a true lower lip. What resembles a lower lip in some of these fishes, like our friend Osteochilus, is actually modified gular or throat skin, often reinforced with keratin. Maurice Caudelat calls the skin flap on the lower jaw a labial or lip fold instead of a true lower lip, since since this structure doesn't develop in the same fashion that a true lower lip does embryologically. Labiodines are the basal sister group of the rest of the Cyprinidae, lending evidence to the hypothesis that cypriniforms evolved from benthic fishes with large lips. Many major groups in cypriniforms are intimately familiar with the lowest reaches of their home waters: loaches, suckers, Geranachilus, carps. Osteochilus-vittatus is no different. Unsurprisingly, labiodines are my favorite group of cyprinids. Furthermore, Osteochilus is a member of the proposed tribe Osteochilini, which consists of labiodines that tend to be less benthic with smaller lips than their relatives. Other osteochilene fishes include the rainbow shark minnows in the Paludorhynchus and the Siamese algae eaters in Crotalchilus, which are popular in aquaria. Osteochilus-vittatus does seem to carry itself more like a rainbow shark than anything, come to think of it, with the fish spending much time near the bottom and having graceful movements. Osteochilus itself is distinguished from other brownish carps by the following characters. For one, there's no hardened dorsal fin spine like many other carps. This dorsal fin in turn has 11 to 18 branched rays, giving it a somewhat seal-like appearance. Every Osteochilus has a pair of visible, well-developed rostral and maxillary barbels. This implies that most Osteochilus search for food either on the bottom and or in somewhat cloudy water. These large quote-unquote lips are covered in taste buds and fringed with papillae, useful adaptations for picking at food off of submerged surfaces. Those papillae are keratinous growths protruding from the lip surface. Since keratin is a tough substance, they provide extra surface area for the fish to graze on surfaces, as well as reinforcement, increasing the fish's leverage compared to non-reinforced lips. The labial fold is not separated with the postlabial group from the isthmus, or the fleshy throat region between the fish's gill covers. No idea how this aids the fish's lifestyle, but I can provide some conjecture. Perhaps the cyprinids with the groove don't use the lower lip as leverage when grazing or something. That previous statement is totally not bait for comments explaining what this groove actually does. Or the groove doesn't exist because the labial fold isn't a true lower lip. The lower jaw is partially exposed and has a hard, sharp cutting edge to allow for the fish to scrape encrusting matter and chop up plant parts. Lastly, fishes in Osteochilus have pigmentation in their median fins, making them more interesting to look at. This isn't the last set of morphological features you'll be hearing about tonight, because I have to describe how you distinguish Osteochilus-vittatus from the other members of Osteochilus. Anyway, Osteochilus-vittatus has an oblong yet laterally compressed body shape similar to other labiodine carps. This fish swims hard, is migratory, and it rests hard. You almost could mistake this fish for something that doesn't spend its life near the riverbed until you see the fairly wide belly region, hinting that this fish rests on it sometimes. Osteochilus-vittatus is one of the more heavily built fish in the genus, possessing a high arched back that gets higher as it matures. Can we get much higher? So high. Whoa. Based on some internet observations of the fish, there appears to be a form with a more slender body, darker colors, and more benthic lifestyle. Could this be a different species? I don't know. Perhaps it's an island form or something. Two of the images of the tall, dark, and lean form are of fish hailing from Indonesia. Osteochilus-vittatus lacks the almost compulsory Asian cyprinoid single horizontal black stripe, instead having multiple thin rows of dark stripes down the sides. As the fish grows, orange and blue speckles appear on some of the scales, and the fins grow a darker shade of red. As for the base color, the fish is a shade of light golden brown, with turquoise iridescence when light hits the scales at the correct angle. This is a quite attractive fish when it matures, in my opinion. The fish possesses 15 to 18 dorsal branch fin rays, which is on the higher end of the genus. Specimens found in islands like Java are reported to have dorsal ray counts on the low range of the spectrum, 12 to 14 according to one of the most in-depth papers on this genus. So there's information missing somewhere. The gills hold 25 to 30 rakers. Please, don't count these on your own personal fish. At the back end of the fish, the caudal peduncle has 6 rows of scales and a large dark spot. Overall, the fish has a similar appearance to the beardless barb Cyclochelictes of Hogan, but that fish has a different body shape which is more compressed, angular, and with a higher back, a triangular dorsal fin, and no barbels. I mixed them up years ago when a baby beardless barb came in a shipment of PetSmart tiger barbs. Hey, got the fish for free, woo! Another doppelganger is their close relatives in Labiobarbus, but those fishes have even longer dorsal fin, and none match the color patterning of Osteochilus-vittatus. If you want to know where in Southeast Asia to find these fish, just throw a dartboard at the map of the region. It's likely found nearby. Osteochilus-vittatus is a very common fish in Southeast Asia, residing in the Mekong and Chao Phraya drainages. How many videos am I going to make about fishes that live there? No plans of stopping. East from Myanmar and down to Sunderland, where it rubs its wet shoulders with clown loaches. The fish has also been introduced to Hong Kong and Singapore, presumably as a food fish. As for specific habitats, this fish lives in rivers, streams, lakes, swamps, and whatever else has water. Stick your net or drop a hook in any permanent body of water, and it shouldn't take too long to find one, unless you're near rapids. Osteochilus-vittatus avoids rapids as it's too heavily built to stand the current, and there's not much plant matter to graze on. The fish even appears to thrive in nearly eutrophic, weed-choked waters. Populations of Osteochilus-vittatus have been introduced into waters soupy with phytoplankton to help clear them up. During the rainy season, the fish visits flooded forests to spawn and forage on the rich, submerged food sources. Speaking of which, the Bonylip barb is an omnivorous grazer with a diet heavy in organisms that photosynthesize. A Thai study of gut contents from wild specimens revealed that Osteochilus-vittatus likes to fill its intestines with detritus, algae, plant parts, and insect larvae. These guts are roughly 6 times as long as the fish, which indicates that the fish feeds on food that requires a long transit time to extract maximum nutrition. The fish consumes more detritus in the dry season and more plant matter in the wet season. Noticeably, sand is sometimes found in their long guts during the wet season. This makes a lot of sense when you observe one feeding, head down against the substrate or some submerged surface, taking rapid bites. An Indonesian study suggests that the fish's diet is heavier in algae, especially phytoplankton. This is likely down to regional variation, implying that this fish is an adaptable one. Like every fish I've talked about so far on Featherfin films, Osteochilus-vittatus doesn't guard its young. A healthy, mature Bonylip barb can produce over 100,000 eggs per spawning. If only chickens can produce as many eggs as a Bonylip barb. Sadly, few of the 100,000 eggs spewed out of the typical healthy female's vent make it to adulthood. These fishes are clear R strategists in terms of reproduction. They're fractional spawners that spawn year-round. So the largest broods occur in the rainy season, which peaks in February. The offspring reach maturity in 9 months. Like most fish larvae, these most likely feed on plankton. Osteochilus-vittatus is normally found near brush piles, plant thickets, and other submerged structures in the wild, as they provide plenty of surfaces to graze on and hide from predators. It's likely a diurnal fish in the wild, judging from aquarium observations. Osteochilus-vittatus has nothing to defend itself against predators besides its width, its speed, and numbers. Living near sunken debris is a good thing for a fish like this, as it can at least dodge birds if they're detected early enough. However, large catfishes, snakeheads, actual water snakes, and clown knife fishes also like shelter, so this is sometimes a case of out of the frying pan and into the fire. Due to its abundance in its native range, the Bonylip barb has some relevance to the people who live in Southeast Asia. Primarily, it serves as a food fish. Like most carps, the flesh is filled with little pin bones which are annoying to eat around, especially for Americans who rarely consume carp. Hard-lipped barbs are said to have a fine flavor otherwise. A special note is their roe, which is said to be a delicacy. To satisfy this demand, Osteochilus-vittatus is sometimes crossed with common carp to produce all-female fish. If you're looking to eat the flesh, expect to find it prepared in a myriad of methods, since this fish has a sizable distribution. In a cursory internet search, I saw a few appetizing-looking Indonesian curries featuring our fin friend. I'll never eat the one you're watching right now, don't worry. It's also a common ingredient in fish sauce, which is a guaranteed way of avoiding the bones. One last surprising culinary use is gelatin made with this fish's skin. Since Osteochilus-vittatus is very common in the majority Muslim Indonesia, pork gelatin is a big no-no. The skin is oftentimes wasted when this fish is processed for its roe, so why not make halal gelatin out of it? Neelam skin is rich in collagen, which makes it a good base for gelatin or fish stocks. This gelatin was experimentally trialed in ice cream to the enjoyment of the experimental subjects. The ice cream apparently didn't taste like carp. I haven't heard of the journal the paper was published in, which explains the writing quality and the experimental layout, to be honest. At least you got a cool novelty from this paper's existence. Why would you try making ice cream out of fish gelatin? That sounds weird. The Bonylip barb's tendency to graze submerged surfaces has lent the fish a surprising secondary use: eating dead skin off of people in special fish spots. This came as a surprise even to me, as I'm familiar with people using the Bonylip barb's relative Gara rufa instead for this purpose. As far as I know, no one's done a direct comparison of the grazing efficacy of Gara compared to Osteochilus, so I can't give you a solid recommendation on which fish spots to go to. I can grasp at straws, make educated guesses, and get someone to consider investigating this question, however. Bonylip barbs grow significantly larger than Gara rufa, so they can consume more skin per fish. However, Gara have more leverage on submerged surfaces owing to the suction cup on their lower jaw, and more underslung mouth position compared to the subterminal oblique mouth of Osteochilus-vittatus. Another point in the Gara's favor is their flatter bottom, allowing more contact to the skin surface. As for their mouth shapes, both fishes possess a hard scraping edge on their lower jaw. Osteochilus appears to have thicker, less flexible lips with extra papillae compared to Gara. which has a mild suction cup formed by the upper jaw and lip and the gular region. Lastly, Garas appear to have a stronger feeding response than Osteochilus. This will be explained more in the care section, but hard-lipped barbs don't feed like most Cyprinids, that is, forming food like it's going out of style. Garas do feed like that in my experience. Overall, the prepared fish for a fish spa is a wash, pun definitely intended. I know next to nothing about how well fish in these spas are treated, so I can't even recommend that you visit one. I can't imagine dead skin being the most nutritious thing for a fish to eat in the first place. The skin removed in an average fish spa treatment is largely composed of hard-to-digest keratin. Perhaps the long guts of both fishes allow for enough transit time to extract nutrition from Joe Schmo's crusty skin? Probably not. The composition of algae and keratin are not similar in any way. Osteochilus-vittatus is sometimes used as an aquaculture subject, since it's a popular enough food fish. Their generally vegetarian diet, cheaper to feed, widespread distribution, they must produce a lot of seed, and fecundity, easier to breed, make them relatively frequent research subjects on this matter. Type in Bonylip barb, or Osteochilus-vittatus/Hasselti, and you'll get a decent amount of papers written by researchers who live in this fish's native range. Their quality can vary, so you'll have to sift through the papers like Osteochilus-vittatus sift through mud to find something worthwhile. Usually, you're going to find things about the fish's life history, genetic stuff, and suitability for artificial culture. Nothing wrong with those subjects, but some of these papers aren't great. Osteochilus-vittatus is said to be overexploited in parts of its range, leading to an interest in raising them commercially to meet demand. Despite this, the IUCN classes Osteochilus-vittatus as least concern, implying that these fishes are in no real danger of extinction despite the threat of pollution and habitat loss. In an aquaculture environment, they aren't always spawned naturally, since that requires waiting for the rainy season for maximum production, not profitable. Instead, sexually mature females are injected with hormones like ovaprim, the goat, to induce egg development. The farmer squeezes both male and female fish over a receptacle and mixes their gametes around. How romantic. Many artificially cultured fishes are spawned this way, so this isn't a process unique to our bonylip friend. The fish has been aquacultured long enough for a xanthistic or yellow form to develop. Yellowfish are easier to see in artificial enclosures against the dark waters, so farmers can spot blemishes on the fish more readily. Speaking of artificial color varieties, I wouldn't be too surprised if someone tried breeding these fish with brighter colors. As mentioned earlier, Osteochilus-vittatus is a surprisingly colorful fish when mature, and the strain that emphasizes the orange and blue body color and the red fins could become popular enough in the aquarium trade. That is, if someone cared enough to do it. In an experiment held in Pakistan, the fish grew faster at lower stocking densities and the typical concrete ponds used for aquaculture in that region. As the stocking intensity increased, the fish became less efficient at converting food to energy and body mass. The experimental fish were fed a pellet, usually used for prawn culture, twice daily. No word was given whether the fish were provided structures to hide under in their ponds. Probably not. The fish were also able to withstand surprisingly high levels of nitrogenous waste projects in the experiment, which are numbers that will get you cancelled for admitting in the average aquarium group. Stocking density had also revealed no effect on mortality. The more fish you have, the more feeding they need, which leads to more waste to clean up. If you're trying to sell a fish that only gets a foot long, it's best to make sure the fish gets as large as it can. Most aquaria don't have 50 fish per square meter, so much of this section is of limited concern to an aquarist. Just know the heavy stocking could explain why your hypothetical pet Osteochilus is growing very much. The fish is also suitable for culture in biofloc systems. Biofloc systems use loading aggregations of bacteria to pull double duty of treating fish waste and serving as fish food. As Detritivores, a biofloc system sounds like heaven for Osteochilus-vittatus, having food float right past them 24/7. Overall, the Bonylip Barb seems like a decent tilapia substitute in Southeast Asian areas, if you can get past slowish growth and smaller size. Could they be a viable choice for aquaculture in other tropical places? Likely, but I'm not keen on spreading invasive species. It's a miracle that the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department didn't ban these guys. Please, don't get any funny ideas. I just want to keep my medium-sized barb in peace. Okay, here's the part y'all have been all waiting for. What are these fish like to keep in aquaria? In a word, straightforward. Mine has given me exactly 0 issues in the few months I've had it. The few accounts of other people keeping this fish appear to share this opinion. Mine eats everything I give it, but has a special fondness for vegetable matter. To be more specific, it lives off fluval bug bites, dried seaweed, algae growing on the decorations, and whatever vegetable I want to share with the fish. It even eats hair algae. In fact, some aquarists in this fish's native lands do keep this fish as an algae eater. As a soldier in the war against algae, Osteochilus-vittatus puts up a valiant fight on the stuff growing on decorations, believed to glass the other troops. This should be expected from a fish that's related to the algae-munching super soldier Osteochilus oblongus. Don't rely on the fish to solve the problem, as Zoo, the aquarist, can unleash a super weapon of turning the lights off at night, or reducing nutrient load with water changes, less food, or more plants. Now time to address the thing I mentioned about this fish's feeding habits earlier. This fish will rarely take food directly from the surface of the water, nor will it bum rush its meals like it'll never see food again like its relatives will. Osteochilus-vittatus eats food directly given to it in a calm, collected, consistent fashion. Thus, its tank mates could potentially outcompete it for food if you don't feed enough at a time. Make sure its meals sink to the bottom, and there's expandable plants and or biofilms for the fish to graze on. My Bonylip Barb does accept seaweed from my fingers, so it's specifically the water surface that turns this fish off. Its mouth is just subterminal enough to make feeding from the top rather awkward. If the fish had a more inferior mouth, it could fully turn upside down to grab food. If Osteochilus-vittatus' mouth was closer to the tip of its snout, it could more easily pick food from the surface without orienting itself at a funny angle. I live in a hard water area, and the fish seems not to be bothered by the high mineral content. Honestly, the water parameter that bothers the Bonylip Barb the most is temperature. My specimen becomes noticeably paler and less active when the temperature drops significantly. I live in a place warm enough to keep most of my tanks unheated. My hard-lip barb spends most of its days exploring and grazing the plants in caves that make up its 75-gallon home. This tracks with the fish being found near submerged brush piles in the wild. Your Bonylip Barb probably won't like a bare tank very much, especially since they appreciate having hiding places. This is not your typical hyperactive Smileo-gastrine barb. Speaking of hiding places, mine finds a nice log or cave to hide under when it gets close to lights out, reminding me that I should go to bed. It's not like it's there to be from that vantage point while I wrote most of the script and put together these cool visual aids. As for its interactions with tank mates, this young fish appears to be entirely peaceful to fishes of all sizes and not too bothered by being the only fish of its kind in the tank. It's sort of like a capybara in Fish Farm. I originally purchased it to help calm down my big male filament Barb, who constantly chased this smaller conspecific. These were the only two I've seen before or since, and I've been searching. They rarely interacted at the initial writing of the script. A couple weeks later, I saw the Osteochilus chase the filament Barb for maybe a second. This is the fastest I've observed it move to date. The currently anonymous Osteochilus occasionally leads the schooling fishes around, but is usually doing its own thing. As for unrelated bottom feeders, he's occasionally chased by a deformed golden Geranichilus when her territory is encroached upon. My Osteochilus also takes turns feeding on large pieces of stinking food with my Synodontis catfishes and Trachyptictes poultry loach. It's like a conveyor belt of benthic fishes. One fish takes a few bites, then another fish moves in and feeds. They like pushing food into corners so it's easier to bite off chunks. The Osteochilus is sometimes pushed out of caves when a specific Synodontis, usually the Synodontis decorus angelicus hybrid named Necoarch, wants to rest in one but no damage is done. I should make mention of my fish's size, which is roughly 3 inches, because Labianine Cyprinids tend to become more quarrelsome when older. I was unable to find long-term care info for this fish at the time of writing, so I'm blazing barely traveled trails. My Osteochilus appears not to defend a specific territory, so I doubt that aggression will be an issue in the future. It's not too keen on chasing other fish around the tank, which is a stark contrast to its close relative in the Pausorincus. It does like to sleep in the same spot at night, so there's that, but even then, it doesn't chase other fish out when it wants to rest there. Another odd behavior quirk you may wonder about is how this fish carries its spinach. Osteochilus-vittatus sometimes keeps its fin close to its body when swimming, and normally chooses to erect them when actively grazing to adjust its attitude. This is not unique to my fish, and I've seen this behavior in videos and images of the species. My Osteochilus is also fairly aware of goings on outside of its tank, and learns who feeds it within a week of introductions to its quarters. It's one of the first fish to follow me around when I take time to look at its tank or walk by, with the others trailing behind. As mentioned earlier, my Osteochilus even accepts food directly from my fingers. It even comes out of hiding when I make eye contact. This fish has training potential. Outside of its size and rarity in stores, the only real caveats I can tell you about this fish is that it's about as suitable for planted aquariums as a fish safe for herbicide. Unless you really want to give your Osteochilus an all-you-can-eat salad bar. While supplies last. Go on, do it. Your fish deserves the best. To add insult to injury, this fish digs around the substrate frequently. If you're putting plants in a tank with Osteochilus-vittatus, they better be unwanted trimmings. If there's a large tank with a duckweed problem, add a Bonylip Barb, and there won't be one much longer. That book I mentioned in the intro stated that the fish works well in planted tanks, but only a few lines later, its taste for salad comes up. Is this sabotage? Overall, I've greatly enjoyed my experience with the Bonylip Barb, and I recommend it to anyone who wants a centerpiece fish for a medium-large tank. It's handsome without being gaudy, gets along well with its tank mates, relatively few aquarists are aware of it unless this video goes viral, is fairly active, and easy to take care of. Well, the pilot video for this new series draws to its conclusion. I hope this video has helped you realize what I see in this fish, and potentially convinces wholesalers to import more. And bring some Lobochilos while you're at it, because mine died in a cold snap. Next video in the series will be about one of those loaches you saw swimming around in the background. Be sure to screech in the comment section if I got something wrong. If you've seen this fish yourself, did my observations track with yours? This is an Odontus Man signing off. New viewers, you know what to do if you want to hear more about random brown fish and semi-obscure endurance race cars. There will be plenty where that came from this year and beyond. Adios.